Hi, I'm MTG and welcome to my channel where today we're breaking down a cool deck tech for a Lord of the Rings commander that just blew my mind when I saw the artwork for it because they were my favorite Lord of the Rings character. So Éowyn, Fearless Knight. And I think one of the reasons why I like this character in particular was just like my absolute favorite was because as a kid I grew up like watching the Lord of the Rings movies like in movie theaters and stuff. And that one moment where Éowyn cuts off the was it Fell Beast, the thing that the Nazgul ride, and was just like takes off her helmet and is like, I am no man. And then it was just like so badass. And just seeing like this being brought to life and like the artwork where I just absolutely adore it. Like it's just everything about it is just so powerful and just incredible. And it's really amazing to see like magic bring this character to life and just like a totally new perspective on like the art and everything. It's just amazing. So this one was like just mostly for like the nostalgia feels for me, but enough nerding out, I guess, on that stuff. So I'll just go ahead and jump into like what Éowyn does and why I love them as a commander. So they're 4 CMC. And I usually like that because it means that I have a chance to like potentially recast this commander multiple times in the game if there's like a lot of board wipes or targeted removal. And with that, they also have haste and are 3/4, so a decent body and one that can attack as soon as you cast them. So what they do is when the ETB or enter the battlefield, you can exile target creature an opponent controls with greater power. So that right there means that you potentially can remove a pesky little blocker, or something that, you can potentially swing out for lethal on someone if you reduce what they can block with. So I love that piece of it. And then we have the other piece here, which is legendary creatures you control gain protection from each of that creature's colors until end of turn. So other legendary creatures potentially can now swing out without having to worry about, like getting blocked, which can just be a really good closer. So with that, when I'm looking at this card, I'm not really necessarily thinking about like, I have to like cast my commander like as soon as, I have the mana available. Maybe I want to save this for when I'm ready to like, swing out and knock an opponent out or, do some serious damage or maybe use it as like a way to protect myself as well. If I know someone's going to hit me with a scary creature, I can, deal with it on the board. So I think that right there is going to make it really powerful. But the other piece of it, again, is you're giving protection to other legendary creatures. So if you have other legendary creatures that care about like combat, you can potentially safely swing out with them as well and get whatever kind of triggers you need. And one thing that specifically came to mind for that was like something like Myrel that wants to attack or anything again that maybe it deals combat damage and you need to like create treasures or something like that. So that seemed like really awesome potential synergies there just with like legendary creatures overall. So again, when I look at what this commander wants to do, obviously this is going to be more of like a combat focused, commander. And so again, on ETB, I think what you want to potentially do here is remove a major blocker or something that is going to let you get like protection from the necessary colors that you need protection from. And then the other piece of this too is you can possibly like double up on triggers because if you're using like flicker effects where you're going to be able to like, flicker or blink this commander, then maybe you can hit multiple targets and have potential to have like multiple things removed and maybe, again, with the protection pieces that you need, potentially knock people out of the game. So I think for this commander, again, I could see it really being used as kind of like a game finisher if you build up your board state and keep that board state protected for the things that you want to do. The other thing that I would potentially hesitate here. Like if I want to do something that's going to double up on these like kind of flicker blink strategies, I probably don't want to do something that's like really telegraphed on it because once people see like, oh, you're just going to blink like something that can exile my stuff, that's probably going to draw a lot of hate on Éowyn. So I would want to do something that's kind of at instant speed, like Ephemerate or Eerie Interlude, where it could even be potentially like a protection piece as well. So if like someone wants to blow up your commander, you could cast like Ephemerate and then be like, no, I'll exile something else or something like that. That is something to keep in mind is like, if you are planning to, flicker your commander a lot, just be careful. Like people are, again, probably going to want to deal with it right away. The other thing too, that I think, it says in here that like legendary creatures that are going to get protection through Éowyn's ability. So with this, you're probably going to want to really focus in on legendary creatures that are going to get some cool like combat effects too. But some other ideas that I had in here too, like I have a bunch of other supporting strategies, but I just wanted to focus for like this deck tech in the interest of not making it too long, just on like really cool like legendary synergy cards that there are. So if you want to see other ideas for like card draw and ramp and things, you can check out the deck list that I have in the video description below. But moving on is added benefit here. Again, we have some really amazing creatures for a couple different things. So with combat decks, you definitely want to protect your board state as much as possible, especially from board wipes. And one of the most powerful board wipes that will probably just really hurt you or anything that's going to be like an exile effect. So we have like Sunfall, which is a new one that exiles creatures. And then we have one that's Farewell that can just exile pretty much everything but lands and planeswalkers. So to kind of get around those things, phase out effects are going to be hugely important for protection pieces. So stuff like Guardian of Faith, Teferi's Protection, or the new one, Clever Concealment, are going to be huge for, again, helping you phase out your creatures or any sort of like permanence maybe that you need to keep alive to allow your strategy to keep moving forward. So with this, I also put in a few different ideas for, giving your board indestructible, because not everyone's running the Farewell, not everyone's running Sunfall, but it's good to be prepared with those phase out effects, but also just good effects that allow you to protect your board state like indestructible as well. Looking more into creatures that at least give like indestructible or some way for you to get your stuff back is Boromir, which is the new card from Lord of Rings as well, which is Warden of Tower. It's 3 CMC as Vigilance. And then this is one of the things where I think it can help protect your board state. So whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. So that could shut down like Deadly Rollick or Fierce Guardianship or any of those other free spells that you have there, or some other weird shenanigans going on that maybe your opponent's about to combo off with. So that is one way to protect yourself there. But we have this other piece where if you sacrifice them, creatures you control gain indestructible until the end of your turn. The ring tempts you. So with this, you can protect your board state by preventing, your stuff from getting blown up if it's a destroy effect. This other creature that I think is going to be super helpful is Jarred Weatherlight Hero. It's another legendary creature, so it fits with that synergy. But if it dies, exile it and return to the battlefield all artifact and creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn. So that could be something that's really spicy. And then two, not only from just like wanting protection from like board wipes or any sort of direct target removal, in combat, we're going to need combat protection too, right? We want our creatures to live through these combats so we can keep building up these board states. So I think Iros, God of Victory, is going to be huge, especially as like just a general win con here, because creatures you control can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. And then you also prevent all damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures you control. So that's going to be huge just for making sure people don't throw a bunch of creatures in front of like one big creature you have and try knocking stuff out. But also you're just preventing damage that's happening to your attacking creatures so you can safely swing out and hopefully hit face. This other card, Tajiak, I probably mispronounced that, Legion's Edge. I think what this is really interesting with is like prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to other creatures you control. So like Blasphemous Act, I think would be really interesting, especially if you're running it in your deck. Maybe that's a potential for like a one-sided board wipe. So I think all that's like super interesting and really helpful for your overall strategy. The other thing with like combat decks is you want to have haste. So if you have haste effects in the deck, that's just going to help give you an edge. And I'm only calling out like the legendary ones that I have in my deck list, but there's other ways to give your creatures haste too. But I think Urbrask the Hidden is going to be super nice because it's going to give your creatures haste, but then it's also going to force in your opponent's creatures to enter tapped. And then we have Goro, which if you pay 1 red, you can give creatures haste. And then you could potentially make dragons as well if you have like some way to modify your creatures. New card that I'm super excited with for like ramp is going to be Glorin Dwarf Emissary, because whenever you cast a historic spell, create a treasure token. So that right there is going to help you do lots of fun shenanigans with just ramping, because This is a legendary focus deck as well, so you're going to probably get those triggers at least from your commander's cast effect. But also, if you sacrifice a trigger, you can choose to go to target creature. So if there's a creature that feels problematic, or maybe you want to help knock out an opponent, you're the archenemy here, you can goad some blocker creature and then, hopefully be able to hit face and do some more damage. And then I think Captain Lannery Storm is also going to be really cool because whenever they attack, you create a treasure. So it doesn't have to do damage. You can just attack with them and you're still going to, get that value from just their combat step. And then the main Wincons that I put in here are going to be things that kind of help with like extra combat. So of course I have like a Chroma's Will, which is not an extra combat thing, but that's like a really good Wincon. But I also wanted to call out like things outside of a Chroma's Will, because sometimes I feel like I put it in tons of decks and I just don't want it to be a crutch. But I also have other things that are going to be really vital for this. So we have like Aurelia, the War Leader, because whenever you attack for the first time each turn, untap all creatures you control, and after this phase, there's an additional combat phase. And then we also have Karlach, Fury of Avernus. So whenever you attack, if it's the first combat phase this turn, untap all attacking creatures. They gain first strike until end of turn. And then after this phase, there's an additional combat phase. And then I also wanted to call out like damage doublers with stuff. So if we have multiple combats or ways to give things double strike, we can just really hurt people with these things that are going to add up on the damage that we're doing. So Glissa, Blade of Gold Knight, is huge for this because if a source would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, that source deals double that damage to that player or permanent instead. And then it also doubles as kind of like a protection piece because if a source would deal damage to you or a permanent you control, you prevent half that damage rounded up. So that's huge for like a game closer right there, especially if you're, you got Myrel out and you have like some sort of protection, like a Grand Abolisher type of effect where people can't cast spells during your turn. And then you just, drop this, can't get countered. And then you have like an Chroma's Will or all on those lines. If you have the mana for all this stuff, then you're going to just be golden. And then we also have Torbrand, Thane of Redfell, that is also going to double up on damage as well. Or not double, but at least add to whatever the damage output is per red source. And again, because we're very combat focused, just thinking about ways of like, if there's like a propaganda out or ghostly prison or anything that's like a repeat fog effect or something along those lines, you want to put in answers for that and really think about like, if I attack, am I going to be able to, not die from people being scared of your board state and swinging back for like counterattacks on you? So vigilance is really good. Anything that allows you to untap your creatures will be really helpful. And again, if you have your own fog effects, that could be a lifesaver as well, because then you can feel like you're safe to swing out and attack and not worry about like the counterattacks there. But yeah, so that was kind of like my idea overall. Love to hear your thoughts. If there's anything here that maybe you would also suggest adding. I did spend a couple of days on this, I almost said playlist, deck list, because there's just a lot of really interesting directions I wanted to go. But I think I kind of settled in on like the power level that I was looking for and the effects and fun cards, because I put in a couple of my D&D secret layer cards. So I was happy about that. But yeah. So again, let me know what you thought about this commander and what are some cards that you would add as well. And thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. Bye.